You got Duke on your right. Both these players are 5-2. This is an elimination match.
And this phrase gets bandied about a lot, but two of, honestly, the good guys in Magic. Just very funny, polite. They're pleasant people to play against. Just well-liked by the community at large.
And they love to game.
They do love to game.
Duke will play a Fleeceman Lion. He'll pass the turn over to Calcano. Calcano with his Dismal Backwater, 21 life. We're on his second turn. He'll play a Polluted Delta. He'll sacrifice the Delta, go back down to 20. Swamp or an island on the way.
And we're probably looking at Bioblight, and Calcano not looking to get too fancy here. Just wants to shut down this Fleeceman Lion. Doesn't want to get hit by something like Obzon Charm, which he can if he just passes the turn, and tries to Bioblight inside of combat.
There is Bioblight to take care of the Lion. We're going to head back Duke's way. Duke will take a draw here. Rashasha Death Dealer in hand. There's a Forest. Is it time for Anafenza? It's actually time for Ramaz. That'll work just fine past the turn back. Flooded Strand here from Calcano. Going to sacrifice that very quickly. He's down to 19. An island coming, of course, as there is no white mana here. Just a fetch land to help out with dig through time.
And see, Calcano's sprung on some nice basics here, and so is Reid. Calcano's a little bit more expensive, but I appreciate the effort.
That's my favorite island.
Yeah, and it's not cheap.
There's a point in time where I could have bought a ton of those for $2. And I decided I could probably get them at a better price.
It's better. It's probably better that didn't happen, because then you would have retired instead of being in the booth with me. So
that's true.
Things work out all right sometimes.
Fair enough. There's Nurborg. Here's another copy of Maz. And now Warden of the First Tree, so 2 creatures. Going to put Calcano to the test here. Pretty good turn there for Reid.
Yep, so I mean, right now the game is definitely being played at Calcano's pace, and something like Crux of Fate, he's setting up a fast dig through time here, so the things are not going that well for Reid, but given the circumstances, that was a pretty solid turn.
Well, into the tank goes Calcano on his 4th turn. We'll see what he can put together here. Ward of the First Tree, a brand new addition to this deck that Boswell's very fond of. Here's Downfall going to take care of Ramaz. When we talk about Boswell, kind of the architect of this deck, he's 7-0 right now with it.
Yep.
Red zone with the Warden. There will be no activation. There will be a Rhino instead. Trigger there. A little drain, a little gain there for the Duke. We'll see if he has land to play post-combat. And pass that turn.
And so far, Calcano has met him every step of the way. He's had a good answer starting on the 2nd turn. This is the first big test. If he has Crux of Fate and some sort of good follow-up here, he can probably take the day. If he's running light on action, the Obzon aggro deck does not take very long to kill from this spot. Next turn is a pump with the Warden. That's 7 points of damage. Calcano at 15. So Christian's done a very good job thus far, but still not out of the woods.
There's an island, and just a passing of the turn. We're going back Duke's way, so no Crux of Fate here. Got to be thrilled if you read about that. Take a draw step. Now it's time to probably get in the red zone. Though if you read, there are some things to think about here. I know a card that's not on people's radar a lot is a card like Aether Spouts.
Although Aether Spouts here isn't too bad for Reid, as he could put the Warden on the bottom, redraw the Siege Rhino. Not the end of the world. Probably something that he's not going to factor in too much of his calculations for his attack this turn.
He's going to start by playing a spell, it seems. Rashasha Death Dealer, pre-combat.
Trying to see if Calcano wants to use any mana using a counter spell here.
Here's 2 mana. Dig through time will be the response here from Calcano. Graveyard's exiled. Take a look at the top 7. Take 2 with you. See, Calcano can find what he's looking for here in this situation. Death Dealer, of course, still on the stack, all in response here.
So again, I've been outside the competitive scene now for a little while, mostly doing coverage, but I imagine watching your opponent resolve dig through time is going to be a pretty bad feeling.
It's not great. It's not great. It's kind of like watching them resolve a Sphinx's Revelation. Not the exact same. It doesn't feel great. Here's a dissolve.
And again, Reid, you know, I'm sure he would have liked for the Death Dealer to resolve, but at least it means that Crux of Fate probably not coming next turn.
A Temple of Silence here, as Duke's going to think about the top card.
And having to sack that Delta now puts Calcano at 14, meaning Warden plus Siege Run over 2 turns is lethal.
There's your activation. Here comes the Warden. It's a 3/3. It's an attack for 7, as you mentioned. Calcano's facing lethal next turn. He'll draw a card for the turn. Does he have a Crux of Fate or some sort of rule spell to get him out of this situation? He'll start by playing Ashiok Nightmare Weaver.
I mean, Reid did scry to the top, so a mill here is not shabby, but this is not what Calcano needs right now.
It's time for Bioblight it is. All right. Not a bad turn there for Calcano. Duke will draw. He's coming in, and there's a Boon Satyr. With Bestow, we'll get the job done. Reid Duke's going to win game number 1 here over Christian Calcano. Abzan aggro very quickly up a game here over Blue-Black Control.
And all the Abzan aggro cards really came to bear there, and they were all important. You know, Calcano died with Jace's Ingenuity in his hand. Very rare for Blue-Black Control to make its land drops against Abzan midrange and have that happen, but putting pressure on him meant that he died with the card drawing spell in his hand.
It's sideboard time, and we'll start with the calculator and his 3 negates, 3 Drown in Sorrow, 2 Disdainful Stroke, 2 Debilitating Injury, 2 Tasker the Golden Fang, a Silence the Believers, an additional Crux of Fate, and a Pearl Lake Ancient.
So I can get behind the Silence the Believers, the Crux of Fate, and I suppose the 2 copies of Debilitating Injury are pretty solid here. Does answer War of the First Tree and Rakshasa Death Dealer. The rest of the sideboard, not that attracted to me. Negates, Drown Sorrows. It doesn't answer some of Reid's stuff, but Abzan aggro brings a lot of 3/3s and 4/4s to the table, so Drown Sorrows is not going to be great here. Tassiker is okay, but these Abzan aggro decks, if they don't have Valorous Stance in the main deck, they certainly have in the sideboard, and so it's possible for Tassiker to be quite bad in the matchup, which is rare. Tassiker is usually awesome across the board, but this is one of the matchups where it can be not the best.
We're going to Duke's side. What's he got?
4 copies of Thoughtseize, 3 Drown Sorrow, 3 Nissa Worldwaker, 2 copies of Back to Nature, 2 Glare of Heresy, 1 Murderous Cut. Pretty straightforward here. Give me the Nissas, give me the Thoughtseizes.
Pretty straightforward indeed.
Yep, take Calcano's best cards, and Nissa very problematic for Blue-Black Control.
Well, easy breezy. We'll see game number 2 here in just a moment between these 2 fantastic players. But we will, of course, talk about another spoiler here from Dragon's Dark here. It is the Den Protector. 2 mana, 2/1. Creatures with power less than Den Protector can't block it. You got the Megamorph there for a colorless and a green, and when Den Protector is turned face up, a little Eternal Witness action.
Yeah, I think this card is very good for the same reason that the blue card we had earlier. It's a fine deal on the front end, and if you have a little extra mana laying around, this Megamorph trigger is no small beans. So this is another good one.
Yeah, this one wouldn't surprise me to see some play at all. You know, 2 mana, 2/1, as you mentioned, just good straight up. The text, I imagine, comes up more than we think. Creatures with power less than Den Protector can't block it, so Hordeling Outburst, for example. And green has a propensity to make creatures pretty big, so you can do that whole song and dance. And then, you know, Eternal Witness is pretty good. Now, it's not exactly Eternal Witness, obviously, because you could do some busted stuff with that, with Astral Slide and Aether Vial and all that stuff, but still pretty good.
Like the green-black mid-range deck we had on camera last round could easily be in the market for this sort of card.
Absolutely. This can be, again, what I like about these Morph cards, be it this one, be it Stratus Dancer, be it Slumgar Assassin, is you can play this on turn 2, you can play it on turn 3, you can play it on turn 5. Flexible all the way up the curve.
Yep. Not to say these cards are as good as Snapcaster, but it's a lot of the same recipe.
Feels the same,
You got
right?
versatility all along your curve.
It's just a sweet cycle of cards. I really like them.
And so far, they've all been good. The ones we've seen have all been good.
Yeah. And it's tough, I think, to design a card that has Morph that is pretty good. Again, Exalted Angel, probably the best Morph card of all time. We've seen cards like Bane of the Living be okay. You know, we have seen a card like Rattleclaw Mystic oftentimes just being cast and not morphed.
It may be more helpful to view these cards as kicker cards rather than Morph cards.
Okay.
You know, it's one of those things where there's 2 deals on it, and anytime you've got the mana laying around, you get a much better deal.
I can see that. I can see that. Either way, I like it.
Yep. And Unmegamorph is going to be fun to say. Mega Unmorph.
You're an adult. That's what I like about you.
Listen, you can't name a keyword Megamorph and expect me to not have fun with it.
Can't you? I haven't broke yet. But I will.
Yeah.
Don't worry,
it's
I will.
It's too much fun.
Unmegamorph.
My phone already autocorrects things to Unmegamorph. But you're already using it in conversation that much. Yeah.
Nice. Dismal Backwater is going to start things off. Calcano's at 21. The Duke with Llanowar Waste, he'll pass the turn back. Turn 2 for Calcano. Well, looks like it might be a land that enters the battlefield tapped, perhaps. It'll just be a swamp, though, and he'll pass the turn back over. Duke will draw. He's got a Mana Confluence, a very important card for his deck. He'll take 1 to play a Fleecemane line.
This is probably going to be a pretty painful opening here for Reid, but Blue-Black Control not in a position to do much about it.
I said take 1, but he actually has to take 2 to cast that Fleecemane line. 1 damage from the Mana Confluence, 1 damage from the Llanowar Waste. There's an island. Here is Nashiok. Time to turn over a couple of cards here. Warden of the First Tree, a Windswept Heath, and a Temple of Silence to the cards. We're going to head back Duke's way. Siege Rhino the draw. You mentioned painful. There's a second copy of Mana Confluence.
I mean, this is enough that it could even add up here.
It could matter.
We've hit the point now where this is almost ridiculous.
Now it's time to play Bramaz. You saw Duke go after Ashiok with the Fleecemane line and wants to try to control that thing a little bit. Bramaz will show up. There's a 3-4. We'll head back Calcano's way. Calcano will take a draw step. 4th turn of the game. Ashiok's going to move up. A Boon Satyr, along with a Warden of the First Tree. Those are some of the options here. Looks like Tassiger as well. There's land number 4 for Calcano. It's a Temple of Deceit. He'll take a long look at things. That card's going to go to the bottom. See if Christian has a removal spell like your Hero's Downfall here.
If he's taking up with Ashiok, probably means he has some way to contain the board.
There is Downfall to take care of Bramaz. We'll go back Duke's way. He'll quickly untap and take a draw. Looks like he picked up a copy of Verborg. If that's the case, that's pretty helpful. And he will play that. Here's the attack. Ashiok going to go down to 1. Reid going to organize his mana in such a fashion that hopefully he doesn't take too much damage. There's Siege Rhino. But it looks like he'll still have to take 2 to cast it. So we'll take 2, gain 3. Calcano, of course, will lose 3.
One of those subtle spots where there is a difference between Mana Confluence and City of Brass.
Absolutely.
It's rare, but it does come up.
There's Pluto Delta. Calcano going to sacrifice that pretty quickly. He'll search for an island. We'll see if it's time for perhaps Crux of Fate.
I mean, this is the type of spot where you want it.
Calcano has 3 of that card up the sideboard, 2 in the main, an additional 1 in the board. Ashiok's going to go up. 3 cards here for Duke. Death Dealer and Fleecemane line, cards that he can bring back. Now there is Crux of Fate. That'll take care of those 2 creatures. Board's clear. This is exactly how Calcano wants it. We head back Duke's way. Duke will untap and take a draw here. It does have a Siege Rhino in hand. Picked up a copy of Windswept Heath.
And that's land number 5 for Nissa. Now, Nissa's a little slow to the party right now, so I think Reid will probably do something like deploy the other Siege Rhino in his hand, but good to have access to that card.
It's a very, very powerful against Blue-Black Control.
I mean, this is also an opportunity for Reid to just potentially resolve the Nissa, turn something into a 4-4 and say go. It puts a lot of pressure on Calcano to have Downfall plus another piece of removal. And Reid may just feel like he needs to threaten this Ashiok before it starts doing too much damage.
Well, Duke searches up a forest there with the Windswept Heath. Going to give his deck a healthy shuffle, and then we'll see how he wants to move forward. It looks like it's going to be the Nissa route.
Yeah.
There is the World Waker. That'll make Urborg into a 4-4. Can't forget that thing has trample, too. Calcano will untap. It's time for him to take a draw step. And this is the kind of card that demands an answer right away, because it can run away with the game all by itself. There's a Temple. Take a look at the top card.
Also a card that's had a slight uptick in popularity now with Ugin all over the place. Nissa pretty potent there.
Ashiok going to tick up. No hits there as far as creatures are concerned, though. It did turn over Anissa. Calcano with 3 mana. See if he has another Hero's Downfall. He does. That's timely. That'll get Nissa off the battlefield. We'll head back Duke's way. Duke with a 4/4 land there in Urborg. Picked up a copy of Windswept Heat for the draw step. 2 Siege Rhinos in hand. Calcano wants to make sure he knows exactly what that land is. It's an elemental. It's colorless, and it does have trample. Also happens to be a 4/4. This will bring Ashiok down to 1.
And if Reid does not want to walk too far into Crux of Faith here, he does have the option of just casting Rakshasa Death Dealer and sending it back. He doesn't have to tap out for Siege Rhino right now.
Reid going to sacrifice the Windswept Teeth. Go get himself a Plains. And now it's Rhino time. That'll trigger. Duke will gain some life. Calcano will lose some. Reid building a nice board here. Still hasn't been able to get that Ashiok off the table, but he's controlled it well enough.
Yeah, though that still represents a pretty big boon here for Calcano. He has saved a lot of damage through this Ashiok.
Oh, yeah. Crux of Fate. That'll clear away 2 creatures. Time to pass that turn back. Calcano able to tap the Bloodstained Mire for mana because there was an Urborg in play. It's no longer there. It was killed via Crux of Fate. But a smart play there from Christian. Now there's Siege Rhino. Reid will, of course, gain some. Christian will lose some. Reid will play a Temple of Silence. Take a look at that top card. Looks like the Duke's happy enough. He's going to leave it on top. Go back Calcano's way. On Calcano's upkeep, he's going to sacrifice Bloodstained Mire. Get a land out of his deck. Search for a swamp here.
And Calcano does not have the game completely stabilized at this point, but this is one of those spots where one big draw should about cement it.
So he's doing well.
Yeah.
Does make you wonder what Reid kept on top of his deck. I think that's something he has to be a little bit worried about, but he's doing pretty well for himself right now.
And it's possible that Reid would leave nothing on top of the deck because he may be more concerned about Calcano putting a creature into play with Ashiok than anything else. So if you induce a mill here, Reid might be happier anyway.
Jason Ingenuity right now in the main phase. That'll draw Calcano 3 cards. Ashiok's going up. Hero's Downfall was what's kept on top.
So
it makes sense.
I just feel like Reid can do it either way there, even if it's a land on top. Living on top there will make Calcano plus the Ashiok.
Retapping a bunch of mana. What do we have here? That's a Nissa. Oh boy.
Yeah, that's the 3rd copy.
Yeah.
One's dead, one got milled away.
This is so hard for Christian to beat too.
Yeah.
This particular build of Abzan aggro seems like it does a really nice job against blue black control.
Yeah. And well, you know, Reid's been able to play the game going pretty late here, which is impressive.
It's my kind of aggro deck.
He's gotten hit with 2 sweepers. Christian has just resolved Jason's Ingenuity. A lot of spot removal got played. And it still feels like Reid's doing just fine.
Reid gonna take a look at the grave right there on Calcano's side. Just wants to make sure he knows what he has to worry about. Taking a look at his exiled pile too. And he's deciding, am I gonna go after Ashiok and finish it off or go after you? Duke says, I'm gonna go after you. Calcano says, well, I'm gonna dig through time. I need some help. So Calcano's gonna take a look at some cards here, 7 of them to be exact. He gets to take 2 with him. Another situation where he needs a card like Crux of Fate.
And he has played 2 of his 3 copies. Perilous Vault too slow in this spot.
Oh yeah.
A couple spot removal spells would not be bad here, but Nissa's still a problem. So you're almost looking at something like Crux of Fate plus Hero's Downfall.
That's basically what's necessary at this point, I think. Now, he can bring something back here with Ashiok, perhaps. That's an option, too.
But I imagine there there's no copy of Siege Rhino down there. I would imagine Reid would have knocked Ashiok down a little bit if that was the case. Which means that anything that Calcano gets is, at best, a speed bump. You know, it's something like Anafenso or Warden that can sort of block, but not a long-term solution right now.
Calcano's got a lot to think about. He's found the first card he wants to take. There's the second. Calcano will draw. He's just never been able to get fully stable.
And it's rare that you see sideboards with 3 Nissas. You know, we see 1 copy hanging around a lot of mid-range decks. Even the beatdown decks, honestly, but the 3rd Nissa here definitely being required.
Calcano going to play Dismal Backwater. He's going to go up to 3. Ashek's going to go down to 2. There is Anafenza.
I mean, that's something that can trade with a land, so 2 pieces of spot removal. And he gets the next turn, potentially.
At this point, I think that's all he can hope for.
Debilitating Injury in Calcano's hand, not really the type of party for that card.
Nope. It can be good on some cards, like Death Dealer.
Well, what is nice about it here is that he can use it on one of the creatures in play. And then if he has another piece of spot removal, he has a 4/4 blocker. He can take 2 from whatever gets hit with Debilitating Injury. And then he goes to 1.
Yep.
And again, gets a shot at it next turn.
Do we have a downfall here? The downfall, things change in a big way.
Yeah, downfall's a huge deal.
Downfall's a big deal. Okay. That'll take care of Nissa. Debilitating Injury goes on the Siege Rhino, makes it a 2/3 instead of a 4/5. And then, of course, that 4/4 land, which Anafenza can trade with. So Duke will have to untap and take a draw here.
And that's why Calcano put the Debilitating Injury on the Siege Rhino. He has to block whatever the 4 power creature is with Anafenza. So he wants to put it on something that Anafenza will trade with, not something that will simply die.
Yep. Red zone here for Duke. Rhino's going after Ashiok. Elemental's going after Calcano. There's a block there. And there's a Bile-Blight here. Okay. Calcano trying to finally get stable. Oh, boy. Man, Siege Rhino says, no, thank you. It looks like the 4th one. You see Calcano eyeing the graveyard.
The 3rd Nissa and the 4th Rhino.
Yeah, all Reid can do is smile, shake his hand, and move on. Reid Duke going to win this match here over Christian Calcano. 2-0. Obs on aggro going to take care of blue-black control. The Dukes still can defend the title here in Miami.
And given how, barely Reid pulled out that game and how good Calcano's draw was game number 1, that is a point of distinction between Obs on aggro and Obs on mid-range. You feel like the mid-range player would have really struggled to win those games, and instead Reid be able to pull it out and still keep his day 2 hopes alive.
Congratulations to Reid Duke. Tough loss there for Christian Calcano. Just really not a lot he could do.
Right. I mean, he played pretty well. His draws were very solid.
Yep.
But game 1, Reid just brought a little bit too much to the table, and game 2, Reid found all of his time back cards. The 3rd copy of Nissa and the 4 Siege Rhino all required there to barely bully Christian out of the game.